Special forces entering the outskirts of Mosul and taking the state television building. Joining me right now is the former U.S. ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Ambassador, good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
This is the first time Iraqi troops have set foot in Mosul in more than 2 years. How significant is this? How would you characterize the fight against ISIS right now?
Well, it's a part of their continuing advance, but let's face it, this has a lot more to do with American air power pounding on ISIS for weeks in advance of this than the Iraqi army. And while we should certainly celebrate any defeat inflicted on ISIS or any retreat they're forced to make, this battle is far from over. And even if when the Iraqi forces win, which I think it's inevitable they will, and will be a defeat for ISIS, it will also be a victory for Iran. As the Baghdad government and the Shia militia continue to advance. It's not strengthening the government we wanted to see in Baghdad after we overthrew Saddam Hussein. It's strengthening a satellite of the Ayatollahs. That's not good news.
Is this resonating with voters? I mean, President Obama spoke yesterday in Columbus, Ohio. He talked about Trump's temperament in relation to nuclear weapons. I want you to hear what he said yesterday. Ambassador, get your reaction.
We can't afford to give the nuclear codes to somebody so erratic. Hillary made a pretty good point. Yet, a man you can bait with a tweet is not somebody you want to trust with nuclear weapons.
Your thoughts, Ambassador?
Well, you know, it's the same slander that they've tried on other candidates before. I don't think it's making any impression. Certainly, I wouldn't support Trump if I had the slightest concern that he had the stability to handle the duties of commander-in-chief. So I think we're now down to the desperation level of attacks. I'd rather see a much more extensive discussion of national security, because I think it is going to be an issue over the next 4 years, whoever is elected president. And I'm deeply concerned that 4 more years of Obama's policies, which is what we would get with Hillary Clinton, are going to leave us in an even deeper hole than we're in now.
You know, one of the things that we keep seeing in the polls is that Donald Trump does better in national security when there's something active. And right now, we've seen that Hillary is doing better in the polls in national security. How do we explain the difference between the two of them?
Well, I think Hillary essentially is a clone of Obama when it comes to national security and domestic policy. While we're on the subject, there's a kind of legend out there that somehow she'll be tougher, stronger, an image assiduously courted by her flacks in the press, but I think not revealed by the record, not revealed by her 4 years as Secretary of State, where the biggest achievements, if you want to use that word, for the Obama administration were begun. The nuclear deal with Iran, just to name the most egregious failure. So to me, this is should be a discussion about whether you want 4 more years of Obama's policies or you want something different. And I think Trump, to peel everything else away, the central difference is that Trump has committed to rebuild America's military, which has been devastated by budget cuts over the last 7.5 years, and which undercuts our deterrent capability and the strength of our diplomacy.
So the current administration is saying that they think that ISIS is weakening and that they're defeating them. And so they're trying to say 4 more years is actually a good thing because they'll win.
Well, they have waited for 2 years to go back into Mosul, during which 2-year period ISIS, which is very sophisticated in propaganda terms, including in digital communications, has recruited God knows how many more terrorists, has deployed them, has laid the groundwork for more terrorist attacks, has increased its influence in countries all over the region, and prepared to exfiltrate its people if the noose closes. The delay, the slowness of the approach really has benefited ISIS in ways we can't even calculate. And I think it's a fundamental reflection that the president does not understand the ideological nature of the opponent that we're facing.
Ambassador, it's Dagan McDowell. Does I was in the room when we took down Osama bin Laden, does that resonate with the American people? Because that's the crutch that Hillary Clinton keeps leaning on when she's on the campaign trail.
God, I hope not, because it simply proves she was a bystander. That's wonderful. I watched on TV. Well, great. I mean, you know, I don't think it goes very far, but it just shows the paucity of her record, that she knew how to change the TV channel to the right one.
Well, you know, we also have, though, active situations now. I mean, North Korea reportedly preparing to launch another intermediate-range ballistic missile in the next 24 to 72 hours. The Clinton campaign says that Trump is unfit to deal with these escalating tensions, nuclear tensions with North Korea. What should the U.S. be doing here, and what would a Trump administration do in your view?
Well, I think fundamentally when you talk about nuclear proliferation, whether it's the Iran program, the North Korea program, the arms race in the Middle East we've seen develop over the past several years, the Obama-Clinton approach has fundamentally failed. These countries are making progress day by day toward that deliverable nuclear weapons capability, and people are just not paying attention to it. In the case of North Korea, the ultimate solution here is the reunification of the peninsula. That's what we ought to be talking to the Chinese about. We should have been doing it for the past 15 years. It really is a question whether you think America's place in the world, a strong American presence, leads to peace and stability, which I think is the Reagan approach and the right approach, or whether, like Obama, you think America is really part of the problem.
Yeah, Ambassador, what would you recommend the first 6 months of a Trump administration to start stabilizing the region? What would he do in that first 6 months, and what would you recommend being done?
Well, I'd certainly recommend that on the day he takes the oath of office, he announce he is abrogating the nuclear deal with Iran. It was a debacle for American strategic interest. He needs to make that clear, that it's really Iran that's the principal threat to peace and security in the Middle East. He needs to follow through on his commitment to accelerate the destruction of ISIS and to do it just as rapidly as possible. And he needs to make it clear to our friends in the region, the oil-producing monarchies of the Arabian Peninsula and Israel, that we are not going to see a continued decline of American interest in the region. I think the whole Middle East, North Africa from the Atlantic all the way over to Pakistan, is disintegrating into chaos. We have to reverse that. It's not going to be easy, but I think the president in his first days in office can really send the kind of political signals that will reassure our friends and remind our adversaries we are still the strongest power in the world.
Yeah, really great analysis, Ambassador. Great to talk with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ambassador John Bolton there.